Hello, everyone. Welcome to InEvent EMA. My name is Vinny. I'm InEvent director and co-founder. My very big pleasure to be here. We are going live here on InEvent, also on LinkedIn, YouTube. So we are here to answer all your questions. We already got many questions when you register for this event. And today we're going to talk about event data strategies to boost 2024 ROI. So we are looking for next year what you needed to do as a company on your events to enhance all the power that comes to data, all the important aspects that we have with data. We want to understand in this fast-paced world that this is so valuable, right? We cannot build companies, we cannot build enterprises, ventures without data. We needed to understand, we needed to collect, we needed to measure, we needed to uh, read, understand what data is talking to us, right? We are collecting so many information today in this world that everyone is connected, everyone is sharing some piece of information. We needed to understand how to use that. And that's why we brought today Tom McMahon, CEO at MCM, a 25, 26 event agency company working with events worldwide. They are based in London, UK. And last year, MCM was voted number one best place to work by Campaign. That is an amazing accomplishment. And we will cover the keys to unlocking those untapped potential driven revenue growth and exploring the last trends, the best practices. And also, we're going to hear a lot of expert advice from here. So please welcome on stage to Tom.
Hello, how's it going?
Going well. Thank you, Tom, for being here with us today. It's a pleasure. And if you want to know more about Tom, please follow him on LinkedIn, right?
Yes.
What else people should know about you? How has been this like a challenge years moving back from in person and like a back to back, right? Like a in person, virtual, in person again. We know as we are here online, virtual events is still going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, thanks for that incredible intro. And yeah, as you say, it's been a very interesting couple of years. And I think we were just catching up briefly and talking about how dynamic and quick moving the events industry. So it's been a very, very interesting few years, but it's also been a privilege to be a part of that. And there's been lots of learning. So yeah, I'm really excited to get into a bit of conversation around data and how best we can start to utilize that. And hopefully there's going to be lots of tips that everyone can take away. And I promise to try and stay away from as much jargon as possible. And if I'm oversimplifying it, I want it to be really accessible to everyone. And so, yeah, I might be oversimplifying some bits, but there's lots of exciting stuff to get to.
Perfect. And if you have questions, anyone in the audience, please put it here in the question box. Also, you can type on LinkedIn or YouTube, wherever you are. We're gonna find the best questions to ask Tom today. So let's start talking about data privacy, right? And collecting data. Like we know how the world is moving forward to, in one side, protect users, give the users more power regarding uh, how collecting your data, which type of data information they are collecting. And the other side, companies they want to give more personalization, right? They're looking for personalization. So what are the compliances companies needed to follow? We have GDPR in Europe, we have CCPA in California. What do you recommend people that are listening today? What kind of data privacy and security they needed to follow? What kind of compliances?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it's a really interesting place to start. I would say the first thing to consider is to only collect data that is going to be really relevant to your event and to your audience. Don't try and overcomplicate it or try and collect too much data. We were joking with the team, I think, last week around some of these forms that you fill out, and there's questions in there around date of birth, and some of the team were joking about what's your dog's name and favorite ice cream flavor. Like, it's important to keep it really focused. Like, focus on what are the really important bits that you need to know. Keep that really simple, Don't try and collect too much data. That's when it can get out of hand. So I think that's something that's worthwhile bearing in mind as a starting point. And then from there, I would say it's really important for everyone to just get up to speed on GDPR or CCPA, whatever it might be, to make sure that whatever you're doing is compliant. And, it's often thrown around, these data privacy laws, as almost like a dark art and something that's really complex. There are some really basic kind of understandings in there, and I'd recommend anyone that is handling data, or any teams that are handling data, it's going to be best to give them that training to kind of get their head around exactly what they should be doing and what they shouldn't be doing. Google's got some brilliant resources on that. There's lots of great content out there. So I'd recommend spending half an hour, 45 minutes. There's lots of really digestible information out there, but just making sure that you're collecting data in a responsible way, that you're storing it in a responsible way. But going back to that first point, making sure that you're only collecting the data that's really important, that you need, and that is really kind of tailored, in this case, to your event. So it's not going over and above, and that's when it can get a bit messy.
That's great. Yeah, I really like how the advice don't ask what's your dog's name. Like this looks like those security questions, right? Very boring security questions that you need to answer when you're setting up like a new account. And today we have like hundreds of passwords. We never remember, right? Those passwords.
Yeah, exactly.
And how's the landscape right now compared to like a pre-pandemic to what we have now? And talking about ROI, do you feel we are back to the same level of like a ROI that companies are getting from this data, or we are still ramping up after like all the virtual people is still like coming back to events, and they are still behind in terms of approaching, probably like going to booths, or literally like coming back to events to participate and register to events?
Yeah, so I would say that I feel like we are back to kind of where we were, but that doesn't go for everyone in the industry. I feel like, to get back to the place that we were, a good few years ago in terms of data and understanding, and that return investment has required people to be quite nimble and move with the times, understand the change around GDPR, utilizing new platforms like GA4, which is Google's analytics platform. There's been a big shift to that over the past year or so, and really utilizing all of these new tools and these new changes. I think the people that have stayed ahead of those changes are definitely in that same level in terms of return on investment. And I would also say, looking to the future, there's a huge opportunity for growth. The idea is that it's going to be a win-win, right? So for an individual, their data is going to be better protected and not shared as freely. But for an advertiser, there's going to be more relevant information to put the right content in front of the right people. So the idea is we'll get to a place where individuals are seeing, content that's relevant to them. It isn't, too invasive. So, I think it's positive the way that the industry and data collection has moved. So yeah, there's lots of exciting stuff that is going on. So yeah, I would say we're back to where we were.
Nice. So you mentioned the new Google Analytics version 4. The last one was deprecated.
So I think one of the biggest challenges that we hear often is, I spoke around, we can now collect more data and there's lots of data available. Something we see quite a lot is that volume of data can be really overwhelming, and there can be, too much data. How do I tackle this? How do I go about it? And our recommendation there would be to segment the data and really focus on what's the quality in there, and understanding in terms of an audience and an event, why are they looking to attend, why are we looking for this information, and from the back of that, how are we going to use it. So segmenting data can be really important. Another big challenge can be the quality of data. So it's really important to ensure that there are good levels of quality control in place when collecting data, and making sure, as I said before, that it's really relevant, really insightful, not too intrusive, and relevant to whatever process that person's going through. So those are two of the big ones, I would say, and we can get onto the quality of data in more detail as well, which would be interesting. But another thing that is quite interesting when we're presented with a wide range of data, I would really encourage people not to sweat the small stuff. often when looking at data, there can be a couple of really powerful insights that are affecting 1 or 2% of the data set that can often skew the mindset and the strategy of the wider data set. So I'd always recommend to take that helicopter view and look at the kind of the macro of all of the data. What's the general gist of things, rather than getting caught on 1 or 2 insights that can really then steer things away. And that's where data segmentation can be really powerful, where you can look at subsets of data and then make decisions based on that, and then communicate, and whether it be advertise or whatever, to those individuals based on them, and not making kind of sweeping decisions based on the few.
Nice, very cool. Can you explain a little bit more about this helicopter view? Why not like a jet or any other, uh, like I don't know, like any other object? Like, do you feel that the helicopter has more like a autonomy to go different places, see the data more close, or
Yeah,
why?
exactly. I guess if we use an analogy of being at an event, if I was to attend the event and I was to, if I wanted to find out how many people are wearing a yellow t-shirt, and I walked through the event and everything that I could see, I was counting, okay, there's 1, 2, and I had 5 minutes in the event. I might come on and say, okay, there was 10 people wearing a yellow t-shirt. Okay, so that means that everyone at the event, out of who I saw, there's a good proportion of people wearing that yellow t-shirt. And that's, I think, where the view has been skewed by that really close to the data view. Instead, if we imagine the helicopter view, so you're stood on top of the big event venue and you're looking down, you might realize that there were only 10 people at that whole event wearing a yellow t-shirt, because where I was stood looking, there might have been a stand handing out yellow t-shirts, right? So it's having that view from the top, and kind of taking information from all of the data at once and not letting those bits skew it. So it is something that we can see is happening when people scroll through and look at different insights and stuff, and they might find, what often happens is they find a few insights that they're looking for, and they get really excited about that. Okay, great, let's pivot our strategy based on that. However, it's really important to always look at the data set as a whole. So yeah, that's kind of what I mean, that helicopter view.
Nice, nice. And can you share with us like some examples, or can you share some essential process to do this to build this view? We mentioned Google Analytics. Our customers, most of them, they also leverage like a Tableau or Fivetran, or like a Snowflake, all the platform. And also for CRMs, we also connected. We are pretty much many of our customers we integrated with Salesforce, with Microsoft Dynamics, Marketo, all those different platforms. So what are the different tools maybe that you see customers using, and also what are the different processes they are doing, like weekly meetings to discuss the data, daily meetings? How was the process to get involved and get like the clear view of what's going on with your events?
Yeah, great. So I think all of the platforms that you mentioned there are great, and there are a whole host of platforms which can be really effective. I'd say it probably matters less about the platform that you've been used to kind of collate and show the data, and more about starting from the beginning and understanding what your objective is. So why are we analyzing this data? What are we looking to achieve? And that's where it's going to be really important to start setting some objectives and KPIs. So, it might be, I want to increase event attendance by X, or it might be, I would like more people of this seniority that work in this sector to attend the event. It's having those clear objectives right at the beginning that then make it really easy to kind of carve through the data and pull out the bits that are exciting and are relevant. And then you've got that smaller data set to work with, and you can be much more granular on it. So, having those KPIs and having those objectives can be great. Something else that I would really recommend as well, if we kind of step out of the granular data world, is creating different ways of displaying this information that is more visual and is more accessible to everyone. Because what we often find is when we're talking about data and performance and these insights that we've pulled out, if we then share that in a format which is really detailed, other people in the business, other people in the events organization, they're not going to be able to process it and understand it in the same way. So we like to present this data in dashboards. So there's lots of different options in terms of the kind of dashboards to use there. So Google have got a couple of quite powerful ones that we use, and it's really showing how that demographic are behaving, what they're doing. And when you've got that really kind of clear overview, it's much easier to share it and get the buy-in from other people in the business, other people in the events organization around what it is that we're looking to do next. And then just going to your other point there around the kind of frequency of looking at the data, there's lots of different examples. I think it's important to sit down before any activity and have a look, pull out these insights, and kind of work out where you're going to go from there. It's also once any activity is running, it's good to review it on a kind of a weekly basis and sit down and but each time interrogating the objective and what it is that you're looking to do. But you can never look at it too much. So within MCM, we will be looking at the data and performance and all of these things against KPIs on a daily basis. So that doesn't, I'm not saying that everyone needs to do that, but the more often you can kind of benchmark performance and the analytics against the objectives, the better.
That's perfect. That's great. Yeah. And when it comes to the ROI of the event, is there something, not only ROI, right? Because it's not just the return of investment, but also when we talk about, as you mentioned, like the return over objectives. What are the objectives? Are you getting the right return about them, or what are the return you're getting? Have you seen any thing like the customer is asking right in the end, oh, I want to understand this aspect of my event, but they didn't start collecting that information in the beginning or during the process? How often you listen customers telling you about that? Like they want to, now I want to measure this, but if you're not collecting this information, how can you measure? How can you prove that your event was effective or not? And also, if you can talk about how like CEOs and C-level, they use their feeling, right? Like, oh, I feel the event was great, so that kind of was enough to prove my investment. How much they still lack of using data to prove their feelings.
Yeah, I absolutely love this question because you've hit the nail on the head. That's such a common thing that we find of, we talk about setting up the KPIs and objectives at the beginning, but then, you get to the end of the campaign and the events run, and you have exactly that, where you might have a CEO or someone thinking, oh, okay, this performed brilliant. And a bit like the t-shirt example, they might think, oh, well, I spoke to 5 people that were our dream attendees, and they said about this. And in their opinion, it's all been a success based on that very small window of data that they have. So what we like to do is to ensure that we can always give a really accurate and holistic picture of how it's performed, is by, again, setting up a whole host of really powerful KPIs that are kind of non-disputable and that are really, really accurate. So I've got a list of some here. I think I'll start with the most important one that we kind of talk about is the conversions, the number of conversions. So that conversion can be anything. The conversion basically is just what were you looking to achieve, and has it been achieved? So that's the kind of first one, and that's the number that you can look at the end, whether it be attendance, whether it be the number of exhibitors, whether it be a certain level of engagement. That can all be tracked there. And then following on from that is the cost per conversion. So what is, penny for penny of everything that's been invested into the campaign, what has laddered up to that top level objective? And those two numbers at the end of a campaign are really, really powerful. And that's where you can get an exact link between the amount spent on this activity and exactly what's been delivered. And something we're really passionate about is we don't run any activity, any digital marketing activity, unless we have full tracking set up. So end-to-end tracking, so that every penny that is spent on a campaign can be measured. So alongside those powerful ones, you've got things like click-through rate, return on ad spend, again, which is how much you're getting back in terms of a monetary value from the amount that you're putting into this activity. Reach and engagement, They sometimes get a bad rep in terms of vanity figures because you might have shown some activity about your incredible event and it's reached 5 million people. That doesn't mean 5 million people are going to come. You might have 2 people turn up. So those numbers are good to kind of look at. The engagement one, I'd say, is a little bit more valuable because that is a good demonstration of the quality of the content and the quality of the communication. Cost per click, again, very similar, but I would always go back to that cost per conversion because that really shows the health of the campaign. And that's one of the numbers we're looking the closest at whilst running any activity in the build up to an event. And that's where data can be so powerful. And we have all of this tracking and dashboards set up almost like on these dashboards where we can see what's going up and down. Why is it getting more expensive? What can we do? Can we change the creative? Can we change the messaging? Can we change how we're behaving? Can we change the targeting, the location, the language? That data can then give you the information of how you should pivot and react, because all of these activities and campaigns should be treated as almost like a live creature that you need to nurture and point in the right direction, etc.
Do you also work with like non-paid campaigns, or usually most of your customers, when you work with them, you're just tracking more like paid ones?
No, so yeah, we absolutely work across organic activity as well. And as much as possible, I recommend people think about them in very similar ways. You can use the same metrics for organic activity, and you can use those, again, really understanding what the objective is, and then you can track how people are engaging, what the reach is delivering, and still set up, look at different ways of tracking by maybe using pixels, installing pixels on sites, which can be a really good way of seeing where traffic is coming from. Has your Facebook content absolutely nailed it, and you're driving a lot of people through from there. So yeah, organic's really important, and it's kind of they're all pieces of the puzzle, right? There's not one piece. It's not just a paid campaign is going to do brilliantly. It's how it can all work together and how each of these different tools are going to be activated at the right time to deliver the right results. And again, all of those decisions are going to be powered by data.
Of course, we know social media, they are more and more delivering less results with organic, maybe because they want us to pay them, right, to uh, reach to a larger audience. Have you done like any campaign that there was no paid at all, like was only based on organic, or you feel like it's pretty hard today to only deal with like the organic delivery of social media, for example?
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm not sure if we could say that we've run a purely organic campaign that would definitely have been better than a campaign that had paid activation running within it, because as you mentioned there, the platforms are so smart that they can twist their arm and ensure that that you need that paid activation to work. However, what I would say as a kind of a counter to that is, as all of the social media platforms are constantly changing, they are still really competing against each other. So
Mhm.
if you use Twitter or X as an example, with a lot of changes going on there, they are trying to encourage people to stay on the platform and to post, and then starting to utilize a lot of organic incentives. So they're trying to push up the organic engagement on there, because at the same time, as we notice, I saw some stuff today around the cost of Google and LinkedIn. If the platforms push the costs too high, and we're constantly trying to push people there, advertisers and individuals will look to other platforms where there is going to be more opportunities. So I think what I'd love to see is there constantly be new platforms popping up, like Threads that Instagram released. That's great because it adds just an extra platform into the mix that makes the others compete. Again, TikTok, controversial and can be used differently in different territories, but again, lots of opportunity on there, lots of organic opportunity on there, as it is really trying to fight against those other platforms and buy some of those users and content creators to come over to their platform.
Nice. So do you think like we will see more platforms? How do you deal with like Snapchat? Have you used that, or do you feel like this is still a little bit far from B2B? But of course, like TikTok or Snapchat or whatever is the social media people are using and those people are involved with business? Is there one in particular that you have been using most?
So yeah, well, I think we're definitely leaning towards TikTok more because at the moment TikTok is a third of the cost of platforms like Meta, which is Facebook and Instagram. So it's so much cheaper because they are still trying to pull advertisers over to the platform. So you're going to get 3 times more for your money on TikTok. However, Snap, yes, we've run different campaigns and different activations on the platform, and it can be really impactful. The interesting things to consider is always going to be audience first. Where are your audience? How are they consuming content? And again, using the data to not second guess where the audience might be. We've seen some really interesting things. We had a B2B event that was all about accounting, and all of these accountants that were coming and looking at the data, we found to the shock of the organizer that a huge amount of the demographic were on TikTok, whereas they're oh no, they're definitely not there. Whereas we've got the data to back it up. And you said about Snap and its relevance with B2B, something I love saying that is I guess a little bit disruptive around. I strongly believe that B2B doesn't exist because we don't advertise to a business, we don't advertise to an office or corporate. We're putting adverts in front of people. Yes, they work in a business, and when I say B2B doesn't exist, I don't fully mean that, right? It's just a bit of a phrase, but you know that same person, doesn't matter if they're an intern, doesn't matter if they're a CEO, they're still an individual with their hobbies, their preferences. They still get the bus, they're still sat on the sofa, they're still consuming on their phone. So we always like to keep that front of mind and not second guess the audiences when we're putting together plans and strategies, etc.
Perfect. Yeah, I totally agree. We also say that there is no B2B, there is only B2P. It's always a person to a person. And that
Yes.
also comes to we as a company, we needed to personify, we needed to create personifications of our branding. Some of those brands, they can do that more easily, like Virgin, right? With a Richard Branson, everyone knows who is Virgin CEO, and he is leveraging his personal branding. Now, all of us, we can do this more and more, but maybe some companies, they have way bigger brands, Apple is way bigger than Tim Cook. Uh, but how do you see that? How do you see creating or improving the ROI for events using our personal branding? What kind of tactics we can use these days?
Yeah, it's a really interesting angle because, yeah, as we're saying, people respond to people, and we're not just operating at a corporate level. And I think to bring it to the event examples, what we find works really well is, if we've got a certain event that we wanted to promote or get people interested in, yes, there is there's a lot of benefit in using the events pages, the events LinkedIn page, etc. Whereas what can be even more impactful is finding people that are either speaking at that event or that have organized the event or might be the event founder, kind of what I'd call micro influencers, people that are really authentic and are quite well established in that industry. When those people are posting about the event and talking about the event, they're part of the community. The kind of conversation is coming from within, and it often resonates a lot stronger with people that are looking to attend. If someone's saying this is brilliant, or I went last year and it was fantastic, and that can be a really nice opportunity as well. Looking at how you can take your past attendees and make those people micro influencers or voices that are really saying how amazing this was and how everyone should go next time. And if a friend of mine is to recommend something to me, oh, I think you should go and buy this, whatever, that's going to resonate with me a lot more than a generic ad on Instagram or something. So there's a really nice opportunity, and again, that's another piece of the puzzle that you can put alongside the organic stuff, the paid bits, the messaging coming from the event, and then that other bit around there of building the community and building that conversation, which can also be really powerful. So yeah, really interesting.
Cool. We have a question here from Mukti. He's asking, what are the challenge? Let me see. I think I lost it. Yeah. What are some of the key metrics or data points Event organizers should focus when analyzing the impact and effectiveness of their events. I think you mentioned, of course, that each event is and each objective is unique, but in general, and also not just tracking like how many registrations come. What else do you think it's important to prove like the ROI of that event and say like let's invest more next year, or yeah, at least keep the event going on?
Yeah, great. So yeah, really interesting one, and thank you so much for the question. I think, as I mentioned, with every single event, there are going to be different nuances and different metrics that have more importance. But I would say it's sitting down and working out what the number one objective is going to be, or the top three objectives, and then from that you're going to get your answers in terms of what the most important metric to measure is going to be. That being said, I guess some quite simple ones to take away from this would be if there's information around a location, that can be incredibly useful. The location one is an interesting one that we've actually got a live example of, a campaign that we ran a few months ago, and it's for a big event in the US. And in previous years, the event organizers had been putting all of their efforts into putting content in front of almost everyone across the US. And it was incredibly expensive, lots of messaging, super broad. Instead, we understood that the most important metric was event attendance. So what we did is we looked at where the event was being held, and then also use data from previous years to identify which areas of the US had people that were more likely to convert and to attend the event. And that wasn't always the areas, as you might imagine, that were closest to the event. There's some really interesting bits of some of the companies that were super relevant to the event that were based on the other side of the states, but we could see from the data those people attended quite heavily in previous years. So we're able to segment the data and then segment our activity to then focus all of the efforts on these little pockets that we knew were more likely to attend. So then that gave us a much more efficient use of the resources that we had available and a much more impressive return on investment. So I appreciate that there's not like I can't give you okay, these are the three metrics, just do these, which would be brilliant. And I would love if we had that. But I would say always start with the objective, find out what what that kind of key reason that people are going to be attending, and then focus on that. And that's just one example of where we did that and it worked well.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah. And just to maybe, if we could draw one example here, let's say a customer, they invested like 1 million in one event. And out of that event, they had a revenue of 900K, either on the sponsors of the event, or even like they are upselling products with that event. But basically, they didn't have like the whole return of their investment. They were a little bit behind, let's say 10% in a margin that can be any size of event. Would you recommend this customer to still putting this event on next year? You say like, oh, I think makes sense, or it will depend. There is no like a right answer. If yes or no, they should move on with this event, like with 90%, like kind of 10% loss on this event.
Yeah, great question. I think my immediate response is come to us and we'll make sure that we get you 200% return on investment on that event. But, in all honesty, I think it'd be really important to use the data, have a look and see what worked and what didn't work. Was it the activity? Did the marketing not resonate? Did the communication not resonate? Did the campaign start too late? Was it not relevant? Were there not the right speakers there, etc.? And what you can do is you can look through all of that data, and you should be able to get a pretty clear picture by really analyzing that, what broke down. And of course, it could be sometimes that the event it didn't quite work. Were the competitors too strong? Was it the wrong time of year? Was everyone on holiday? Like, there are so many factors that can go into this, but by using the data, you're going to get a pretty good idea of what didn't work. Was it the messaging, etc., what didn't work, or was it the event? But interestingly, in that example, you'd really hope that there would be some great insights in there that was like, okay, well, we ended up putting communication in front of all of these people that were the wrong people, or we ended up communicating to people at the wrong time, or on the wrong platform, or in the wrong way. There's 1,000 options there, and if I was looking at that exact example, that would be incredibly exciting, because then that would mean that we could go back and discuss with the organisers and say, look, it's not you, it wasn't the event, that everything's great there. Look, if we do this differently and this different, we can guarantee that there's going to be an uplift here and here, to then push things further. So yeah, I'd love to have a look. I'd love if that was a real example, because straight away I want to get into it and break it down and see what can be done. But yeah, it's an interesting one.
Yeah, if at least they are measuring all those ROIs properly, that's already a great way to start, right? Like you already building the tactics, the tools to make sure then next you can move forward, you can get a better ROI.
Yeah.
And for next year, what else do you recommend? I feel like there is no more, oh, you're going to put a nice event, maybe a great keynote, and people will show up. People like, there are so many competitive reasons to not go. There are so many reasons to not go to an event today that what are your advices for companies, even the big ones, the small one, doesn't matter, of the branding, how to attract people to your events, and of course to attract the right people?
Yeah, great, and it's one that we're constantly wrestling with. It's a conversation that we're always having, and if any of the team are listening, that they'll say I sound like a broken record, but it's always going back to the why. Why is a person going to attend this event? Like, what is in it for them, and thinking about the individual. And then you can quite quickly start to break down the motivators for why someone is going to attend an event. Do they want to go there so they can network? Do they want to go there so they can make business? Do they want to go there so they can post stuff on their LinkedIn and show their peers and their employers how proactive and how eager they are? Do they want to learn? Do they want to have an exciting day out? Like, these are all legitimate reasons of why people attend events. And I worry sometimes that understanding of why someone is going to go can get lost amongst us as event planners and organizers, of why we want people to attend. That why we want people to attend isn't really relevant. It's much more important to understand why people want to go. And I do think that has changed. The reason why people are attending is, I think, less because maybe 5 years ago the reason someone attends is because they attended last year, or because their company has asked them to attend. I think these reasons are weaker than they've ever been, and it's more around, why does that individual want to attend that event? And there's lots of exciting stuff in there, as I say, around enjoying the event and the engagement. What can we have on the floor that people can get involved with, and the connections that they can build? Do they want to be part of a community? So I think that, although it's not, my answer isn't focus on AI and have all of this flashy VR bits, in terms of future facing. I guess that's, as a advertising principle, that's been around for 100 years. So, but I don't think it's changed, and I think it's more important now than ever. And yes, you can look to all of the flashy things that are coming up in the future around innovation, and AI can help with those bits. And there's lots of other tools that I think are going to be really interesting, like predictive planning, where you're looking at data around how your consumer base and your target audience have behaved in the past, and then predicting how they're going to behave in the future. That can be really exciting. All of these are almost like shiny things that we can stick on, which are great, but the foundation is always going to be the why. Why does someone want to attend? And then build in all the strategy, all of the messaging, all of the creative, all of the data-driven activations behind that why.
That's perfect. Yeah, totally agree. And then maybe we can have one last question here, and the her question is similar, I believe, what we are talking about. How can event data be leveraged to personalize the attendee experience and drive higher engagement and satisfaction? You mentioned like a looking back to like a what happened previous years. What are the data I have from my last event, my last year event, and we can predict the future with that. Also, how to use benchmarking to personalize more to drive this higher engagement.
Yeah, I love this question because if we're talking about again the future of data strategies and stuff, I think this is a key part of it, and this is something we get really excited about. But in terms of leveraging that data on a more personalized level, I mentioned segmentation a few times, but if we were to look at the kind of the target audience and we were to pick a certain group of people from that target audience. So if I use the example of, we've got an event for accountants and all of these accountants going, we might focus on the accountants that work in the sustainability sector and all around environmental bits. So now we've got that nice data segment that is around those accountants that work in that specific sector. And then how can we then personalize with those people? So can we put creative in front of them that is personalized to them? It's talking about sustainability. The messaging is all about sustainability, but still talking about the wider accountancy event. And then to go a level deeper, could there also be maybe a QR code on some of the assets that have been shown to them that can show them which exhibitors are going to be great for them to visit when they attend? Or could there be messaging around a particular talk or a networking session, or even like a drinks afterwards that is going to be relevant to them? And that's where that's when it gets really exciting, because you can that those messages are tailored to those individuals. They're going to be much more efficient. You're going to get much more from your investment. You're going to get that better ROI. And that's when we can start taking that approach, timesing it by 10, 20, 50, and having those different segments where resource allows, tailoring the messaging to each, using some of the AI and the kind of the power of the platforms to speak to people how they want to be spoken to, with the content that they're interested in. So that's something that I'm really passionate about. It's something that we are really driving, and we've been pushing and pushing over the past couple of years, and want to keep pushing. I mentioned with creative, there's such an exciting opportunity there to tailor the messaging and tailor what people are seeing in the feed to them, so it doesn't feel intrusive. It's not, "Hi Tom, I'm here." Instead, it's just something that I'm actually interested in, and I feel like it's giving me value and is actually quite useful. And that's where data can balance that kind of fine line of, okay, that's relevant, and I like that, rather than it's like, whoa, it kind of feels like an advertiser's in your house, looking you and giving you this information. So yeah, super interesting and lots of opportunity there.
Awesome. Yeah, I you gave me like an idea here, and I would love to see any event platform how we can build like a use AI to leverage my my interest on that event and my time available, because more and more we go to events and we are still needed to answer emails. We're not going to be going to all sessions all day long, like based on my time availability, based on my interests. What are the sessions you recommend me to go? What are the people maybe recommend me to talk, in networking? I think we can definitely use AI to provide a smooth and way more personalized experience for attendees.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, if we look at some other platforms, tech platforms that do this incredibly well, Spotify, Netflix, Amazon, every time you log in, it's, okay, "Hi Tom, this is what we thought you'd like." And it's that same mindset. And we can do that within event marketing, and we can use those segments to put messages in front of people that is of that same thing of, okay, well, we think you'd like this. And it's, a really effective tool.
Yeah, yeah, and social media even better or worse than that, right? Like if we say like you mentioned accountant event, and I get my phone and I say like accountant, many times I'm gonna see a lot of accountant ads on my Instagram feed, right? Probably that's gonna pop up all
Definitely.
day long, or at least for the next day. So we
100%.
needed to bring the same tools, or at least probably not the same level, but create something similar to our events. Tom, thank you so much for your time. I think it was really valuable, all the insights, all the information you share here. We want to keep this conversation going on. Again, people can connect to you on LinkedIn to ask more questions. I think we also have here maybe your email on the top. No, yeah, we have your email available here. So if someone wants to connect with you, it's your email information available. And anything last that you want to talk, but not least?
Not at all. That was brilliant. Just yeah, thanks again for inviting me on, and thank you for everyone watching. All the questions. Yeah, it's a privilege. As you can see, I could probably chat away about this kind of stuff for hours and hours. So yeah, thanks for everyone joining, and yeah, please reach out with any questions at any time. Always happy to discuss.
Yeah, and see you around maybe in London for the Event Tech Live. An event will be there in London. We can meet in person, and it will
Perfect.
be great.
Amazing. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good one.